Okay, sorry for this interruption. So as I was mentioning, this webinar, we have two main objectives. The first one, it's to present you InvestHorizon, why this program may be or not interesting for you, who can participate, in which capacity, and what you can get out of it, and what will be requested, and what are the services that you can benefit on. The second half of the webinar, we will devote, if you are interested in joining the InvestHorizon Accelerator, then we will devote to explain you the application process. If you have time to stay with us until the end of the webinar, should you be interested in the InvestHorizon Accelerator, I strongly recommend it, because you will be covering the application process, which has some specificities, and it will be important for you to watch it. If for any case you need to leave earlier, we are recording this webinar and we will upload it later today in the website, so you can then later on visit and watch the final steps of the webinar. So I have this. I'm sorry, but I'm controlling everything here. Okay, so excuse me, I'm trying to minimize here the screen, which I can't. Sorry for this. Yeah, you're not seeing the participants. Sorry, I had something on my screen.
We don't. We just see your.
Okay, perfect.
Your presentation.
Okay, so why joining the accelerator? So the main objective of this accelerator is support entrepreneurs and their investors to increase that are seeking Series A funding to increase their investment amount and the valuation. We understand this can be challenging. The investment raising process is time-consuming, is challenging, and we want to strengthen your strategic proposition in order to be able to indeed increase a higher amount of investment at a higher valuation. Of course, your seed investor is aligned with their own interests, because they also want to increase the investment and particularly the valuation. Also for the seed investor, one of the key objectives also to form a Series A investment syndicate that is strong and is able to support the company in follow-up rounds or have the right connections to do so. So this program is very much towards entrepreneurs that, as I mentioned, are in Series A funding round, but with a strong commitment and support from your current seed investors. Ultimately, what we want to achieve is help you, support you, and increase this investment at a higher valuation, but reducing the effort and the resources you need to achieve this. From our experience, as working for many years with entrepreneurs and investors, it's extremely time-consuming, resource-consuming, because you need to travel, you need to have meetings. If you're going to cross-border investment, then there is also a number of legal issues that you need to address, and therefore we want to support you in this endeavor by reducing the time and the cost of the fundraising process. So ultimately, to make all this process effective, more effective for you. Who are the companies that we can do, that we are supporting and that can participate in InvestHorizon? As I mentioned, the companies should be raising Series A funding, so they should have already raised a seed funding round of 250,000 euros, and they should be seeking 2.5 million Series A funding or more in the next 2 to 3 years. This should be based in Horizon 2020 member countries and associated countries, or part of Eureka network countries. Ultimately, but very important is also that you are very committed to the program. So it's selective, but we need your commitment and participation so we can help you and support you better. The selection is then based on a scoring of the companies, which will be achieved through a self-assessment, and I will be detailing this self-assessment later on, as I mentioned, in the application process. For the entrepreneur, for the investor, as I mentioned earlier, so this is a program where we ask the commitment from the entrepreneur, but also from the seed investor. The seed investor has an important role in validating the self-assessment, as that I mentioned that the entrepreneur is doing, and also must be committed to support the application and be part of a trust group, which is one of the activities we do in the Accelerator. So they have to commit to participate in some of these sessions and acknowledge that they have been investing in the company. So this is what we require from the investor, the seed investor, and the commitment we require from the investor to participate in the InvestHorizon Accelerator. So what is the value proposition from InvestHorizon Accelerator? The application phase, which is what you are now, actually it's May 6th, the deadline, it's not May 1, so you may apply until May 6th. And our aim is to engage the most promising companies. We are focusing on healthcare, so this cutoff, the first cutoff, InvestHorizon, is devoted to healthcare companies. We are selecting 30 companies to participate in the Accelerator. Then we will join in one kickoff week in Paris, early June. We will do the activities very much strengthening your strategic proposition, as mentioned before, through a series of activities, but mostly through trust groups. And I will detail how these trust groups are formed and how you can benefit from this. And finally, we will support you in developing the investor relations for the syndicate and for your Series A round. What is the output you get from these 4 stages that we have identified here? So in the application process, either being selected or not, you will get a validated SWOT assessment highlighting your strengths and your weaknesses, your opportunities and threats. We do this based on your self-assessment and an assessment from our experts within InvestHorizon. So being selected or not, you will always get this SWOT assessment. On the kickoff week, which will be held in Paris, we will work together with you, with the selected companies. So the 30 selected companies, we will join in Paris, and we will validate with you an action plan towards the goal of raising your Series A round. This action plan will focus on your opportunities and your threats and the challenges you're facing in order to be successful in the fundraising process. We will do this, as mentioned, through trust groups, which are focused online sessions. However, we will be running already a few sessions already on site on the kickoff week in Paris. In the investors relations, we will do this both inviting you to events, to pitching events, where we make sure to bring the right investors for your company that are active investors in your area, and we do so also by introductions, by facilitating introductions with investors either online or via email. How is this InvestHorizon Accelerator differentiating from many of the accelerators? First and very importantly, it's a pan-European accelerator, which has other advantages also, like in the trust group, where you can actually have companies from different countries. We are very focused on efficiency to achieve the results. So less effort, less time, less costs, but higher results. We do this through these trust groups, which has a collaborative approach. So the companies will be grouped in groups that most likely are share on the same subsector, and it's a collaborative approach, and which allows to leverage on each on all the companies' specific knowledge, specific network, the companies and their investors. I would like to emphasize as well. So it's a collaborative approach, and it's personalized because it's customized to your own requirements, to your own needs, to your own challenges, and we do personal introductions and make sure you meet with the right investor for your company. The time commitment, this is estimated times. The application, as I mentioned earlier, also it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of preparation. So we estimate a total of 4 hours to fill in the application, because you have to have your pitch deck or a slide deck that covers your business information, give details about your business, and also then you have to do the self-assessment. The kickoff, it's 1 week in Paris. It's an on-site week with several activities. I will cover those in a second. Ideally the CEO, but you can be represented, seconded by someone from the management team. It should be someone that will be directly involved in the fundraising process. The trust groups will be done, some of them on site, but the majority online. We will split on average maximum 20 hours. We will split between 9 sessions. You don't need to attend all the 9 sessions, but we advise you to. And as mentioned, the investors relations, we do it online through contact exchange, but also at events or as appropriate. We will also leverage on the network of the partners of InvestHorizon. Regarding the investor time commitment, and again, I'd like to emphasize, so this program requires the commitment of your seed investor, or alternatively, if you have an interested investor in investing in your company that is willing to support you in this program. So 2 hours in the application, because they need to also do the self-assessment of the company. They attending the kickoff in Paris, it's an option, but then they should take part in the trust groups, in the online sessions, at least for 10 hours, maximum 10 hours, which will split over 5 sections. Attending or participating in the investor relations, they often do like to do that as well, but it's optional. A few words about the peer trust groups, because this is, as mentioned, one of the key differentiators of InvestHorizon Accelerator. The model of the Accelerator is very much supported on these peer trust groups. So we will select 30 companies in healthcare, and we will divide these companies in groups of 4 to 6 entrepreneurs, according either to seniority or subsector. So we will have for 30 companies around 5 or 6 groups. And we have also, so the entrepreneurs, the seed investors, plus 2 or 3 InvestHorizon experts that we will have an active role as facilitators. So the groups will be depending, of course, on the companies, but this is what we anticipate. So we will have 2 groups eventually in the medical devices, 2 in digital health, 1 for pharma and biotech, and 1 for biomarkers and diagnostics. But this will, of course, depend on the 30 companies selected. we will join these entrepreneurs in groups. We will ask you to sign an NDA to be part of this group. So it's the only way we can freely, and entrepreneurs can freely share their concerns, their strategic issues in trust. So we can provide you the right results, and also the seed investors should be part of this group. What is the value of these peer trust groups? So you get peer recommendations, so companies that are facing similar challenges or have gone through those. So you have recommendations and shared experience from your peers, identification of key opportunities. And we will have also introductions that will be either coming from the group itself or from the experts. So you will have contact exchange, introductions to investors, or introductions to partners through these peer trust groups. So just to recap, so the initial application, you will get this SWOT analysis. It's a report you will get with a short action plan on the areas that need more work, or you should key areas where you should focus your attention in order to be prepared or be ready or be successful, raise your funding. We have the kickoff in 1 week, the kickoff week in Paris. The kickoff week, we will have 3 activities. We will have a 3 days boot camp. We will have a pitching academy, and then a pitching forum where companies will pitch to investors. We will, as mentioned, you are grouped in groups of 4 to 6 companies with their investors and supported by some experts. We will have some online sessions already, one or 2 online sessions, most likely one session before the kickoff week in the boot camp, and then after the boot camp we will do several online sessions focused on your specific challenges of the companies in the group in order to improve their strategic positioning. Also, in these groups, we will have this contact exchange, which, as I mentioned, so this will take approximately 2 to 3 months. So then you finally meet the investors either online through introductions or at events. We will do pitching events. We organize the partners a lot of venture forum events, and we will be doing a number of online e-pitching events as well. So this is another opportunity where you will pitch to the investors, which will beforehand make sure are coming to the events the investors that are more targeted to your specific company. So this process will take roughly 4 months. This is what we estimate, because of course this takes time, as you probably know from your own experience, but also it's also what we see. It takes time until you successfully raise your funding. I just wanted to say just a few words about the activities in Paris before opening up the Q&A. So as mentioned, we will have 3 sets of activities in Paris. We will have a 3 days boot camp from the 3rd to the 5th of June for the selected companies. It's a 3 days event, and during these 3 days, on day 1, we will focus on leadership issues and team issues. On day 2, we will focus more on the business, and on day 3, we will focus more on the funding process, the do's and the don'ts, and the deal terms, etc. So the boot camp will detail. We will work with experts on the key issues that will allow you to consider already the issues on the scaling process, regarding your business, regarding your leadership and human resources, and then of course the funding process. We will also have on site these trust group sessions, which will be similar to the ones run online, but will be run on site, with addressing the challenges of some of you that are selected, and coming up with an action plan to address those challenges. So this was the bootcamp. Then the Pitching Academy is an academy where those companies that are going to pitch for investors will be training, have a dry run with their peers and with feedback from active investors. And then the pitching event, it's on the 7th of February. For those of you that are more investment ready and can already pitch to investors, so we will have 20 to 30 investors, active investors in the healthcare. This is hosted by BPI France. It's going to be at their headquarters in Paris. And there we will have presentation to investors and one-to-one meetings. As mentioned, we are focused the events all the week on healthcare, so addressing biotech, medtech, digital health, and diagnostics. Just a few words about ourselves and the promoters of the program. This program is financed by the European Commission and in association with the Eureka Network. Tech Tour is the organization I belong to, is the lead partner, and we have 6 other partners supporting us that are some of them strong investors, but all working in the ecosystem. We also are doing this in collaboration with CEOCF, is the methodology that we are using. It's a well-known organization on this peer learning and peer challenging. And we have their support to do these trust groups. Just summarizing what it is and what is the differentiating of the accelerator. So you start by doing a customized assessment based on your specific challenges and your specific strengths. You do this through your self-assessment. The questions are tailored in order to identify specific issues that are relevant for scaling up and for the fundraising process. You will get an action plan. That the action plan will be discussed with you. It will be discussed with your investor. We'll agree on what are the actions that are addressing your needs, what are recommendations and your availability. So the action plan is discussed and agreed with you. We do this through a number of activities, but the core is on the trust groups, which is our peer-to-peer trust groups in full trust, where we get also some introductions within the group, tailored to your investment needs. And you can participate in the number of supporting activities like workshops, the bootcamp that I mentioned, or investment forum events where you can actually meet with venture capital investors and corporate investors. This program is free upon selection, but it requires, as you could see, some commitment from your side, not only in the application, but mostly in the trust groups. I would like now to stop at this point before going into the details of the process application. I understand some of you that are attending this webinar have already started their application, but right now I would like to focus the questions on what I have presented so far about the program. If you have any questions, either type them in the Q&A on the bottom, you can see the icon, or just raise your hand. You can raise your hand and I will just give you the word. No questions?
Teresa, you did a much better job than me last week because I had so many questions. So, but you did much better.
I'm not sure that's the case, but but anyway, okay, I'll proceed. I mean, if in the oh, there's one question here. Thank you. Can you tell us about the process and track record of the program in previous years, Matthew? So the question is about the success rate of and track record of InvestHorizon program in previous years. InvestHorizon, this InvestHorizon as such, it's the first time we are doing the accelerator of InvestHorizon. So we had InvestHorizon 1 indeed, where we were more supporting the companies through coaching, on-site coaching and pitching events. The success rate, I don't have the figures and the top of my head, maybe William has, but the companies have raised over 20 or 30 million, I think. I don't know. I really don't have these figures, but we had quite a good successful rate. I can share with you the report, Matthew, if you like. I can do it. I can send you the report. But as mentioned, the accelerator, it's kickstarting now. So it's new. So we don't have yet any track record in the accelerator. However, the methodology that we are using, for instance, in the peer groups from CEOCF, is a proven methodology. So they have been doing this for many years, and we have their strong support and commitment. And actually, they will be the ones doing the in Paris bootcamp. They will be doing also the peer meetings. Okay, there's another question here. Can we say a bit more how you would mobilize different groups of investors to increase exposure of participating companies?
Do you want me to take that one, Teresa?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I see that some of you know us, like Gilles Capal, who is here. Sorry, Gilles, but your name is listed there, so I'm not revealing any secrets. But TechTour and the other partners that are in the program have, of course, a lot of experience with matchmaking with investors. So we work with a lot of the suspects, the typical suspects, the VC funds, the corporate investors, some of the most significant business angels, as well as the national and regional promotional funds that can help. So the specific new addition here is that we are going to build a database of contacts that in fact the peer groups and trust groups are going to support. And again, the participation by the seed investors is very important. So we will, based on the work that is done in the trust groups and also in the Paris week already, we will work on suggested investor contacts around specific companies that are perhaps less well known. This could be serial entrepreneurs that just exited their company. It could be family owners of companies that are interested in the healthcare space. It could be medium-sized companies that are not so well known, but actually quite specialized in the area, that are developing new corporate venturing programs. And these more specialized people can often become the core value-added investors. So we have a methodology that is powered by CEO Collaborative Forum, that is our partner on Bootcamp and also on the trust groups, to share these contacts and also mutually introduce these contacts to people. So we will widen your network with the seed investors taking part, with the TechTour and BPI network, and really facilitate the identification as well as the introduction of your cases by people that know them to these new investors. And of course, we will have the battery of events that TechTour is running, that InvestHorizon is running, that other partners are running. I hope that answers the question, but of course, we're ready to be even more challenged.
Okay, so I have here two other questions. What are the key success factors for a successful funding application? I'm not sure I understand if this successful application is application for InvestHorizon Accelerator or when you are for the investor. So this anonymous attendee, could you clarify? But anyway, I'll try to address this. So for the successful application within InvestHorizon Accelerator, it's important that you do describe your team, your business, and your financial needs. And you have also the opportunity to upload a slide deck. It should be a pitching slide deck, so keep in mind that it's for investors. So all the key areas that investors always want to understand. So the market, the total market size, the serviceable addressable market, the competition. So all these areas, your IP, specifically in healthcare, this is relevant. How much have you, who are your current investors? How much are you looking forward? What are your milestones? So all these things are, of course, should be there in order to already both to be selected for InvestHorizon Accelerator as well as for when you meet investors. To successfully get funding from investors, I mean, this is it would take a long time to answer this, but maybe it's important to understand who are the best, and this is where InvestHorizon Accelerator can actually also be of help to you. Who would be the right investors for your business, because your investors are more and more specialized. And who are the right investors and what are their specific key investment criteria. And this is where we can help you, because we have been working for many, many years. I speak for Tech Tour, where we have been working side by side with these investors. We have a deep inside knowledge about their investment interests. They share with us their investment interests. And so this is why we claim that we can be also more efficient, because we make sure that you meet the right investors for your company and considering your business model and your area of in your subsector or your medical indication or whatever. I hope I have answered your question. The other question, can you choose or exclude specific business angels, VCs, and investors? We don't exclude for sure. What we can do is to invite specific angels, VCs, or corporate VCs to events if you either if they are in our network or if you show interest or we understand it is important for you to meet with this investor. We will use our network, and we use our reputation or credentials to make sure that we bring the investors to the events in order to meet you. We don't exclude investors. Is there a cost to the companies for bootcamp participation? I presume companies cover their own expenses for attending. Also, is only one representative allowed from each selected company? Okay, this is important. So as mentioned, if the program, the Accelerator program, is for free if you are selected. So there's no fee whatsoever to participate in the Accelerator. However, you do have to cover your own expenses to attend. I am aware also that if you are part of some Eureka countries, like for instance Sweden, sometimes they may give you some support for traveling, but this is something you would need to check with the national representative of Eureka in your own country. So InvestHorizon will not give you any support regarding covering your own expenses. Regarding if only one representative is allowed from each selected companies, I think you can bring two, but I need William to confirm this. I think if all 30 companies are bringing two representatives, then it's going to be a little bit crowded, and the efficiency of the groups is also depending on the number of people that we have in the room. So too many people, then we start losing efficiency. However, we understand that we are asking companies to be 1 week in Paris, and this can be challenging. And if for some, so this is where you can bring two, or one can be more in the beginning and the other one, the representative, can be maybe in the end of the week. So we can open up until two representatives if this in a situation where you cannot stay the full week. Will corporate ventures from large companies participate to the program? Yes, of course. So we work at TechTour very strongly with the most corporates in health. So Bayer, Roche, Merck. So we have them. They are active participants in our events, and we will also bring them to the program. How do you manage conflict of interest when an investor already funded a competitor? I'm not sure I fully understand this question. So if
I may,
yes.
So
Yes.
in fact, with all the investors, the trust group is closed. You know in advance which investors are in. In terms of when you are presented or being introduced to investors, you will, in principle, the introduction doesn't mean that you're sharing any information. So while it may that you find out that they invested in a competitor, well, we will not have released any confidential information. It's up to you. So the investor matching is always using the different steps moving forward. We're identifying new investors, and we're getting better response through the mutual and personal introductions. What you tell investors is your normal business activity or your normal fundraising activity, to go, of course, step by step, so that enough trust is generated before releasing confidential information, or only after an NDA, for example. So that's up to you.
Okay, thank you, William. Anyone would like to raise the hand or type another question? Can you remind the date and deadline for application for the self-assessment and for the bootcamp? Of course. So the application calendar, you can apply until the 6th of May. I will go through the application process right after, but let me address this already. So you can apply until the 6th of May. We have extended slightly the application date, but you have to do the application plus the self-assessment. The application takes some time. Because you need to fill in some information, as mentioned, the pitch deck. So if you are already prepared, you can go fast in the application. If you don't have this information, it may or you have not prepared, it may take a little bit more time. So don't leave it until the 6th of May, because then you still need to do your self-assessment. And the self-assessment is one of the key steps you have in the Accelerator, because depending on your answers, which will be then validated by the investor, we will recommend some of the actions and some of the activities, and through the peer group, some of the things that you should focus your attention on. Regarding the deadline for the bootcamp, so the deadline for application with the self-assessment is on the 6th of May. You will be informed on the 10th of May if you are selected or not for the bootcamp. And then the bootcamp is on the 3rd to the 5th of June. Okay. So I think in the meantime, if you have more questions, you can just type them, and we will devote in the end of the webinar some more time for Q&A. I will now share again my screen to go to the second half of the webinar, where we will present you how to apply and the application process. In the first webinar, we did a live demo. Here, we will just go with you through the application process, so it is more clear and that and less time consuming. Just an overview about eligibility and the assessment step. So the first step, it's what we call the eligibility step, where you have to see if you meet all these eligibility criteria that were mentioned before. So you have seed investment in place, you can identify and provide a letter of your seed investor, and you are from one of the Horizon 2020 or RICA countries, and you have your slide deck uploaded. And then we confirm the eligibility. We do this rather fast, and then you go into the self-assessment step. And this is where a very important step, where we will look at, where you will go through some 5 dimensions that I will just explain. And then you will be informed about if you were selected for the Accelerator and for the week in Paris. Again, the calendar, so deadline for application 6th of May. You will know the results by the 10th of May. The boot camp is from the 3rd to the 5th of June. The pitching academy is on the 6th of June, and the pitching forum is on the 7th of June. It's a full week, but you may not be, either you may only attend some of the activities like the boot camp or the pitching academy, or you may be selected to stay the full day. Just boot camp and pitching academy is for the majority of the companies. The pitching event is a little bit more selective. We will select 25 companies that we consider that are investment ready or ready to meet investors. So the pitching event can be a little bit more selective. And if you can't stay the full week, as mentioned, you can be seconded by someone from your management board. Then after the summer, we will then have the trust groups. So we will start, as mentioned, in the bootcamp, but then we will follow with online sessions. And then in the autumn, we will start bringing you to meet investors. So there's this pitching event already in June for those that are already able to pitch, but then there will be more opportunities in the autumn. So regarding the application, so if you go to InvestHorizon website or from the letter you have received, you will click on the apply and you will come to the application screen where you have where you have a quick profile, and then you go to step 2, which is the eligibility checklist. So this gives you already an indication of the eligibility criteria. So if you are SME countries, should put yes. If you had past funding, yes. And this step is important, is where we ask that the seed investor confirms that the company has raised a minimum of 250,000 euros. We have a template that can be downloaded, and you can upload the letter of acknowledgement from the seed investor. This letter can be submitted until May 17th. So what we have seen in the companies that have already started the application is that sometimes it's not so easy to get the letters from the investors. So from the seed investors, so you may submit it later in the process, but the deadline is really the May 17th. So if you are selected and you don't provide the letter, you will not be allowed to come to the event. So, and we will go to the next in the ranking. So the selection is conditional to have a letter from your current investor acknowledging that they have invested in the company. Then there are a number of questions regarding future funding. And then again, we have here a letter of intent. This letter of intent is a letter of support from, in most cases, from your current seed investor, that you will commit to participate in these online sessions, in these peer trust groups. All the methodology, all the process is very much supported on these peer trust groups and alignment between your investment and the entrepreneur regarding, you know, the strategy for the fundraising. So it's important that your seed investor, or if you have an interested investor for Series A, commits to be part of this process. So this letter is mostly requested to confirm that they will attend these peer trust groups. As mentioned, you may submit these letters until May 17. The other eligibility criteria you need is the pitch deck. The pitch deck is very important, as I mentioned, because it's really where the experts from InvestHorizon and the selection committee will look into. They will look into your profile, which you have short sections to write a little bit about your business. But this is a very important element where you have freedom to present your business in a tailored way, and it's the most effective way to present to the selection committee. Another very important step is that you remember to save. It's very important you remember to save. You can come back at a later stage, and when you save your profile, you will get a link. You need to keep this link. You can email it to yourself. You need to keep this link so you can return to the application process and continue the application. If you don't save, you will not get this link, and then you will have to start to work all over again. The next, so we have done through the eligibility check. The next tab is the organization, where you provide information about your organization and the markets you are. And then finally, in the application, you can cover a little bit about your product and technology, the market, and the competitive position. So you see, we don't ask that much information here, but this is why the pitch deck is so important. Another thing is that you can fill in the organization application at the beginning, even if you don't have the letters. So the sooner you do this, the easier it is for us. And if you submit the application or save the application, if the only thing missing is indeed the letters, please submit the application so you can go to the next step. You will be asked also here, and this is why the reason of this screen is important, is that you have to give us the investor, the fund name, and the investor email. This contact is very important because it's the investor we're going to contact to do the self-assessment. So they will be requested, they ask to do the self-assessment. So we need to have their credentials so we can contact them. Ideally, it should be your current investor, your seed investor. It should be the same one that has signed the letter of intent or the acknowledgement letter. When you submit, you will get the link, keep the link, because you can always come back. If you want to change your slide deck at a later stage or something, you can always come back and change it until the 6th of May. You can always change it and edit it. We will freeze after the 6th of May because then we will start the selection process on the 7th. So you have until the 6th to edit and change the application. But as mentioned, you can only do it if you save and have the link. Once you've gone through this stage, you have to go to the self-assessment. So the self-assessment is done on these 6 dimensions. So the main dimensions in the business, of course, the management, product, business, competition, investment, and communication. Once you start the self-assessment, you're asked to give these credentials. It's important that you use the same credentials that you used in the application. So it's the same organization name and the same email. Otherwise, we cannot match the application with the self-assessment. And then the self-assessment covers a lot of a set of questions. So there are 5 questions for each group. So a total of 30 questions. And you have a score from 1 to 10. You can only give a score from 1 to 10, 1 being minimum, 10 being maximum. So we ask you about this. It's important that you reflect on these questions because they will be important for the action plan that we will discuss with you. So we need to, from these questions, distill the challenges, and from a pitch deck and from the information that you provided in the application, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses and threats and opportunities. So you have, the moment you score, you will have already a subtotal on the what we consider strengths and weaknesses in a percentage. So you will have an immediate feedback while you are filling in the application. So the same for product, business, competition, and investment. In the end of your self-assessment, you have this report that already identifies on the left side what are your strong elements on the left side, and on the right side where are the areas where you scored lower. If you don't think these are actually don't reflect well what your perception, you can always go back, read again the questions, and if you want to change the scoring you gave yourself before, you can still do it until you save and submit your self-assessment. So this is about the application process. I know some of you have already started doing it. If you have any specific questions, if you came across some issues, we are here to clarify those. I will now open up the Q&A and stop sharing my screen. So as before, please raise your hand or type of questions regarding the application process. So just recapping, you can submit the letters if it's difficult to get the letters from the seed investor. You can submit them later until the 17th of May, and the selection is conditional to have these letters in place by then. Okay, so there is one question here. Hi, Gilles. You can talk now, Gilles. I think I'm muting you, but for some reason I cannot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Gilles. Hi.
How to handle the situation where you are more than 20 seed investors?
What do you mean? I'm not sure. We
have used business angels as seed investors, and there are 20 of them.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So it should, well, we only request the participation of one. It should be one that is willing to it should be always the same in this trust group, because there is some sequence associated. So we only ask from one. Usually there's a lead investor, also in the business angel syndicate. So, or if it's not the lead investor, at least it should be the one that is more actively involved and willing to participate in these online peer group sessions. So this is what is really important for us, that someone that is committed, the investor that is committed to collaborate and participate in a collaborative approach in these peer trust groups.
On one of the schemes, there was a question: eligible or not. What is the criterion?
So the criteria are there written. So if you have raised, if you haven't raised 250,000, then you should say no. So you are not eligible unless you can. Well, we have some flexibility if you have raised some money through grants or SME instrument or other type of grants. Then you should provide some evidence, a PDF, something that you have received some public grant. And William, are you still there? What is the amount for the public grant? I think it's 500K.
Correct. 500K. But the seed investor commitment is more powerful than the grant. The grant you will do only in, I wouldn't say exceptional, but it's the second line, I would say. But of course, for companies with great technology, great ambition, great traction, that they didn't raise seed investment could be waived if there has been grant investment, for example, SME instrument or Eureka or other sources, including national and regional, of course.
Well,
is there? Okay, so I will. There are a few questions here on the Q&A. Does prêt d'amorçage of and prêt d'amorçage, I guess it's a grant, no, of 100K because
it's a kind of instrument in France. So yes, it can be used as part of the seed funding. Yes,
can be considered in the hurdle of 250K seed funding.
Yes.
Yes, I think so. How is a seed investor defined? The seed investor is your initial investment. Usually these are national promotional banks that are actually taking the role of seed investors. So, yeah. So, but it can be also a business angel. Some in the other webinar, someone asked about the crowdfunding, if crowdfunding is classified as seed investor. We are very agnostic, so we accept all kind of seed investors, being them angels, being them national promotional banks, being them crowdfunding platforms. How strong is the 250K in the last 3 years rule? Can we apply in this situation 500K plus 5 years ago? Yes, yeah, of course, Nicholas. So it's not very, in the last, it's not very, not very yes or no rule. So we will go on a case by case. So in your situation, I don't know if it's yours, but like a company that has raised 500K in the last 5 years, we will consider the application eligible. Is a French tech grant part of the 200K funding hurdle? For the grants, we have a hurdle of 500K. So we need to see the financial mix here. But I would advise to submit the application because then we take it on a case by case. Is a French tech? Yeah. So I think I've just answered this one.
I answered some of them online directly.
Okay, so that's why I'm trying to.
So you can always go back by checking the answered column. But basically, I think there's been a few questions about how to compose the minimum of 250K seed.
Yeah.
So of course, the key is to get to have that as an equity. It can be part of a loan. Of course, it is a little bit challenging if the new investors already have to pay back a loan. It depends on the conditions, of course, on the loan. And grants should be considered separately because we realize that in biotech, medtech, or healthcare in general, a lot of companies raise grants. So the grants will not replace the equity, and it should be at least for 500. And as I said, it's less good than an investment, particularly.
Okay, thank you, William. Any more questions?
There are 3 more that are not answered.
Uh,
Or can you say a bit more about how to mobilize, or maybe you have answered those already? Yeah.
You did, so that's why. Okay. Is a French, is a city best. So I think
there's one question in the chat by Matthew.
Okay. You're all using all the platform. So for the seed fund.
That's the question I just answered.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Regarding the application process, I hope it's clear. If you have, okay. In any case, I mean, if you have any additional questions while you're going through the process of application, if you decide to join InvestHorizon Accelerator, and when you are in the application, if you have any queries, please go to the website and send us. You have a link there to address the questions, specific questions. We want to support you in that process. I think, Gilles, you want to ask another question?
Well, I'm still unclear about the hurdle of 250. Is that a minimum or a maximum or what?
It's a minimum. It's a minimum of equity, but if you can have a mix with grants, but then for grants, the hurdle is 500K.
Okay, clear.
Can you receive the presentation per email? I mean, we can always, it's not ideal, to be honest, because you can always upload the presentation in the unless it's...
No, but I think the person is referring to this presentation that you just presented.
No, because they say, can you receive the presentation per email? In any case, if it's your presentation from your company or from what we call pitch deck, it should be uploaded in the profile. Otherwise, it can be difficult for us to match the presentations.
No, it says that the question is, sorry, can you send the presentation?
Send, yeah, right. We will put this on the website. So the recorded webinar and a downloadable PDF with this slide deck will be put online in the events section where. Yeah, I think that's anyway. We have not discussed with Nomi yet. Nomi, are you still there? Where we will put it in the website? We cannot put it in the homepage, so most likely we will put it in the events section.
Yeah, we'll see where we'll put it, but we'll post it online.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay, thank you. I hope we have been able to address maybe not all of your questions, but the majority. As mentioned, you can always send us additional questions, particularly in the application while you're doing the application if you come across any difficulties. So thank you all, and I hope you have a nice day.
Thank you, Teresa. Well done. And thank you all for participating. Great questions.
Okay.